this is what I call a build. It's fast and silky smooth. It covers the entire screen with bullshit, and it's capable of dishing out 100 million damage in just a few seconds. Honestly, this may just be the best build I've ever played. It's the Oil Barrage Wyvern build, injected with a metric ton of steroids. And in this one, we'll cover everything you need to get the build running, regardless of whether you've got some proper currency to spend or if you're a dogshit broke-ass noob. Because it doesn't really matter, you can delete any content either way. So first things first, what are the interactions that make the build work? First, I want to give a shout out to J_Mac for showcasing these interactions. He's made an Amazon version and an Oracle version himself, although with quite a lot of differences compared to mine. Alright, to understand the build, you need to know how Oil Barrage works. It's a projectile skill that you spit out to oil up your enemies. You can then ignite it, and a lot of other shit, but we're not interested in that. Rather, we're going to empower it to cast a channeling skill simply by consuming power charges. So that's the first thing you need to solve to play the build, generating power charges. We're going to do this in two ways, where our main generator is infusion of power. As long as we're consuming elemental infusions, we'll get a power charge. And this is incredibly easy as an oracle, as we have 100% crit and can use Cock with Comet and Living Bomb to reliably consume infusions. On top of that, we can use Cock with Profane Ritual and spawn them that way. But that's not all it does, because it also deals a shit ton of damage for us when we pair it with Crown of Eyes. And if that for some reason wasn't enough when it comes to generating charges, we can generate them via Breath of the Mountains as well, with the Catalysis node in the passive tree. Once that is done, we have half of the puzzle solved for making the build fantastic. The next part is the skill gems. Starting with Oil Barrage, the support gems here are actually what makes the build amazing, as they have some interesting interactions. And again, I did not come up with these, but first we have Salvo. Using this, you get 6 additional projectiles when you use it. What's interesting is that Oil Barrage snapshots this buff, meaning that when you channel this bad boy, you just keep shooting out all the projectiles around you. To make sure they don't fuck off to Uganda or whatever, we then use Nova projectiles, ensuring they spawn around us. We then have Ricochet, allowing the barrage to chain off terrain. But apparently, for this skill, the ground counts as terrain, meaning we get the chaining automatically. We then abuse this by using Fork, allowing the projectiles to both split and chain. And after that, the skill is complete, and we can slot in any damage gem, where Garakan's is the best if you can afford it, or else you just use any decent damage gem like Burgeon. Up here, I also have Rend. I have this set up so that you can use it for freezing enemies and gain the Bater's Vengeance buff. But since this build deals truckloads of damage, I don't think I've had to use it once for that. Rather, I'm using it only on pinnacle bosses to trigger cast on crit, so I get a power charge, and then I just hold down the Oil Barrage button after that. But if you need extra damage, use it when mapping as well. After that, we have Whirling Slash. This is our movement skill, and you want it only in weapon set 1, whereas you have Oil Barrage only in set 2. We buff it via Blazing Critical to grant us extra damage, Rigwolds for attack speed if you can afford it, else just slot in whatever the fuck you want, rapid attacks, heightened accuracy for a small amount of attack speed bonus via the passive tree, and knockback to push enemies away as you're moving with it. Next up is Charge Regulation, which I'm using for crit, defense, and skill speed, as we'll use all the different charges in this build. Next up is Cast on Elemental Ailment. If you can't get enough spirit, then this is the first skill to go because it's not really mandatory to play the build. I'm using it to generate endurance charges using Armor Break 3 and having Detonate Dead Break Armor. I then have Arc and Sione's Temper to consume lightning infusions for a bit of extra power charges and damage. To get the final charge, that is frenzy charges, I'm using Sniper's Mark every now and then when I'm spinning with my whirling slash. I then boost it via charge profusion and second wind to generate more charges, and then I just slot in some random shit because why not? Alright, and finally, some of the more important skill gems, Eternal Rage and Berserk. We'll get a truckload of damage via these. Not only because Oil Barrage is an attack skill, so we get multiplicative damage here, but we're also getting Mystical Rage and pairing it with Crown of Eyes for 200% increased damage. If you're low on Spirit, then you can set Eternal Rage to only be used in weapon set 1, and Berserk you want to use in set 2 only either way so that it doesn't eat up your health. Finally, Siphon Elements generates more infusions, ensuring we're always topped off on our power charges via the interactions mentioned earlier. This you could also have in set 2 only if you're low on Spirit. And speaking of Spirit, let's discuss this a bit more in depth, because I swear to God, if one more person asks me how to solve Spirit, I'm going to fucking lose it, so I might as well timestamp it. Charge regulation. Both sets, worst case you remove it, as it's not mandatory. Cast on crit. Both weapon sets. Worst case you only have it in set 2, because that's typically where it's triggering. Cast on elemental ailment. Same with COC. You can have it only in set 2, or remove it completely as it's not mandatory. Eternal Rage. Both sets, or worst case only in set 1. This one's mandatory. Berserk, only in set 2 either way. And finally, Siphon Elements in both sets, or worst case, only in set 2. This one's pretty much mandatory. Alright, and when it comes to getting the Spirit needed, I have a Spirit Jewel to make it easier, but it's not needed, as you can slot in Grand Spectrums or solve the Spirit via gear using the tips I mentioned previously. Or you can just slap on the Vol's Protector body armor and you won't have to rely on infusions at all, but you'll lose quite a bit of defense and damage, so I'd use that as a last resort. And with that, let's head on over to gear to check what else is going on there. I mentioned Crown of Eyes earlier, and here you want to look for one with as much spirit as possible, of course. The same goes for the amulet and chest, where you can also grab spirit efficiency, which is nice, but going back to the amulet, this is more or less the perfect one, and you want to anoint Mystical Rage unless you've got a metamorphosis with it on. Then prioritize getting projectile ranks and fill out with defenses or rarity. For the chest, this one's basically perfect as well. Get spirit and then buttloads of energy shield. When it comes to the rings, you need both mana and life leech. Those are the only mandatory stats. After that, you can fill out with damage and defenses along with rarity. I found these for cheap. I don't know why. Someone was probably pissed drunk when posting them. But just look for something with similar stats, and you'll be good to go. I can mention that the gear stats do not have to be anywhere close to as good as these. They're insanely overkill. Alright. Then we have the per usual Headhunter and Essentia Sanguis for the energy shield leech. When it comes to the boots, you can actually grab a pair that is cheap as hell, as you don't actually need any movement speed. I'm using my old pair, but you may as well just go full out energy shield boots and move via whirling slash instead. Finally, the weapons. Either you go with something like this if you want to use a spear with a bunch of attack speed and at the same time have a chance of killing enemies with it, or you just go with a Sky Sliver weapon for pure attack speed. It doesn't really matter. What does matter, however, is the talisman. Here I'm rocking a Meiji talisman, but any is fine as long as it has a fuck ton of damage and preferably also crit chance for even more damage. Preferably you won't sanctify it for less amount of attack ranks, but hey, you can't win every time. If you're a loser, that is, because I'm scrapping this one and going again after I'm done with this shitty video. In any way, for the flasks, Olroth and Lavianga is the best, obviously, and then you want Fall of the Axe for Onslaught, Breath of the Mountains for more power charges, and either any useful rite of passage or the Valico Charm for frenzy charges. Great job, friends. Gear complete. There's but the passive tree left, and then I'll teach you how to play this magnificent build. Spoilers though, it's easy peasy, so even you bunch of brain-dead chimpanzees will be able to do it. First off, we have the Ascendancy. You can play the build on any fucking Ascendancy, but for this particular version utilizing infusions, I'd go with Oracle so we can use Inevitable Critical for more consistent uptime of power charges and a shit ton of damage, along with Entwined Realities to make allocations easier. We then head on down, grabbing all the attack damage, spell damage, and attack speed, followed by a bunch of rage and our first jewel, a resonance from Nothing Diamond, allowing us to utilize this big-ass group of clusters over here in combination with an Against the Darkness time lost diamond. This one's perfect, but costs more than I'd like to admit. So, if you're broke, either go with only the extra spirit or one with just damage and solve the spirit elsewhere. Alright, then we head on back to grab some energy shield, spirit, along with basically a free support gem for increased energy generation. Here we also have a lovely rare jewel, where I can highly recommend grabbing one or a few of with ailment threshold, as it sucks mad balls to get interrupted when chaining Oil Barrage. This is also why I have more ailment threshold here for weapon set 2, the Oil Barrage weapon set that is. Next, keep on moving down here, grab a Heart of the Well Diamond with as much damage as possible, along with our main power charge generator, Infusion of Power. After that, we want Energy Shield. How many Energy Shield nodes you grab simply depends on if you need it or not. If you're in need of more defense, then just ditch a few damage nodes to grab more. You have a lot of freedom here. Then grab a Heroic Tragedy jewel with this line, Varana. The rest doesn't fucking matter, but we want the Varana one so we can transform a Keystone into this, allowing us to gain Energy Shield instead of max life via Strength. Due to this, you also want to dump any spare attribute nodes you have into Strength, meaning sort out the requirements, then spend the rest on Strength. Next, you grab this massive cluster of nodes, along with another rare jewel and some crit damage nodes. Finally, we find a spear cluster for extra attack speed, some attack speed for both sets, as Oil Barrage also scales with attack speed. The Catalysis node, transforming some physical damage into elemental damage, allowing us to trigger our charms, and finally, some additional crit for weapon set 2, and an Oil Barrage Prism of Belief. Now I just bought this and it costs close to nothing, but it's possible that the price will skyrocket once this video has been released, so if it does, just grab an additional rare jewel with more damage in that case, and with that, we're finally done with this crap. There's but left for me to teach you how to play. When mapping, it's easy peasy. You need to get one power charge and then the build is online. To do this, just slap a few monsters with Rend or Oil Barrage and you'll get one. Then once this is done, the build plays basically like a Twister setup. You move with your Whirling Slash, you hold down Oil Barrage, then repeat. For additional attack speed, you can also use your Sniper's Mark to get a Frenzy charge, and if your gear is complete hot garbage, then you can also freeze enemies with your Rend to get the Bater's Vengeance damage bonus. But as you can see, I have no need for that, alright? And then bossing. Here, the exact same rotation applies. You want to use Sniper's Mark and hit the boss with Rend until your cock triggers to grant you a Fire Infusion. You then grab the Fire Infusion, spawn a comet via your cock so you consume it, and you have your power charge. After that, you just hold down Oil Barrage until the guy dies, which should not take long. Easy as that. And with that, we're done. Drop a sub, consider becoming a YouTube member so I can pay rent this month, and I'll see you in the next one.